All right, guys, Tyler Ward is joining me in studio for a little State of the Mets talk, action, whatever you want to call it, because right now the action hasn't been or lived up to par what we thought the season was going to be. What's going on, my man? Glad I can get you up here.
Thanks so much for having me, Brandon. Always a pleasure. Really excited to get into this, even though what's been the trend lately, it's always been more of a negative than it's been a positive to talk about in Mets.
Well, let's try and stay positive.
Right.
I feel like New York needs a little more positivity when it comes to the sports, especially with the Mets, because we can look at this as like a glass half full, half empty type situation. Still 1.5 games up on the Reds, still in good position in terms of making the playoffs, but they can't afford anything else, I feel like, to go wrong with almost less than a month left in the regular season. How confident are you and the fan base, because I know you're the voice of the fan base, how confident are you guys that the Mets can hold on to that top spot in the wild card race?
I think the confidence in them at least being in the wild card is solid, because when you look at the Cincinnati Reds, at least if you've been paying attention, they don't have an easy schedule at all. So I think that's something that the Mets can lean in on, us fans, and say, hey, listen, the Mets haven't had a great baseball, but at least they're facing off versus a team in the Reds that have a gauntlet of a schedule for the remainder of the year. Where there's a lack of confidence has a lot more to do with the division, especially 7 games out currently, the Philadelphia Phillies, and knowing that this has been now north of 2 months straight of the Mets just not playing good baseball. Like, they've had one of the worst records, like bottom 5 in the game, going back to north of 2 months now. And then you look at also up until really this past week, they lost 14 of 16 games. Like, you just can't have that streaky of a season and then have instill confidence as an organization, and let alone the fans especially, to say, hey, oh, the boys are going to go out there and be just fine. Like, no, they actually need to start to prove it now instead of us just believing it, if that makes sense.
When we talking about proving it, you talk about the division, but I feel like there is a division when it comes to this team being able to put together consistent good baseball. One night you can have the offenses there, but the rotation and the bullpen is struggling, or vice versa. Carlos Mendoza has said that the Mets are going to go back to a 6-man rotation soon. So where do you think they stand with prospects Jonah Tong and Brendan Sproat?
So this is the big hot button topic right now, right?
Everyone's talking about this right now.
And this has changed so much, especially over the past, I would say, north of a month, because a lot of fans, headlined by myself and others in the community, have been saying, call up Noah McLean. The guy's been dominant all year long. They finally do call him up, and through 2 starts, he looks like the Mets' best starting option outside of David Peterson, which is crazy. So then you say to yourself, if you're David Stearns, this Mets president, okay, we finally started to give a leash to our young top prospects, and it's working. Will it work more if we consider Jonah Tong, who, according to Mike Puma here at the New York Post over the past 72 hours, reported that the conversation has finally started to change with Jonah Tong. He's now in that discussion for that 6-man spot. And that's huge, because Tong not only has a sub-2 ERA all year in the minor leagues, he has more strikeouts than anyone else in the minor leagues, but he's touching 98 on the gun, doesn't have even a single piece of facial hair on him. He's only a young 22. Yet he's going to light your absolute doors off, and there's nothing you could do about it. He has some of the best breaking balls in the game we've seen already, just throughout what he's done in 2 starts in Syracuse since he's been moved up, because he was the McLean replacement. He has been jaw-droppingly good, hasn't allowed a run his first 2 starts. So Jonah Tong looks like he's getting heavy consideration finally for that 6-man spot, because if he blossoms at all like McLean is, before you know it, in the snap of a finger, the Mets' 2 of their best starting options potentially heading in that wild card round could be the kids versus the veterans who have been here for the majority of the season.
But
that's how good they are.
Is that asking too much on 2 of the kids, though? You're
definitely
asking these 2 young cats, no facial hair, probably just was legal to be able to drink. You're asking these 2 to come up, 1, save a season almost, and then 2, play like a seasoned vet in the postseason. Is that asking these 2 too much?
It's asking too much if you're going up to them and demanding it. That's what the Mets are not doing right now, because David Stearns, Mets president, was very adamant in the first half this year by saying that we do not want to rush up a prospect for the sake of team need or team desperation. But what we have seen is that, they did kind of call up McLean because the team needed desperation, because they're getting no length from their starters. Jonah Tong falls in a similar category with that. And then the final man that I haven't touched on yet, Brandon Sproat, as you mentioned, he's another arm to consider, because he not only throws north of 100 on the gun, he's been looking far more polished over the past month and a half, but he's now looking like he's going to be utilized as a reliever for this Mets team because the Mets just threw him in the bullpen in AAA Syracuse yesterday. He gave up 5 earned runs across 3.2 innings. Not great, but this was his first professional outing ever as a reliever. So if the Mets are warming themselves up to that idea as a reliever, we could likely see Ton come in as that 6-man option for the rotation and Sproat come in as kind of that middle-to-lawn relief, a guy like Frankie Montas was supposed to be before now he was kicked out of the rotation, the bullpen, and now is out for the year and is probably going to be getting Tommy John surgery at this rate. So it's less about the pressure on the kids as it is this is now an opportunity to consider them, something the Mets probably should have done a month and a half, 2 months ago. But again, it's always better late than never, and that's what Stearns and the Mets are trying to figure out now.
So leave it up to the young guys to come in and bring this team some aura, some sort of juice.
Right.
I feel like we were
Exactly.
talking about this a little bit earlier off camera. For the last, 2 seasons, we've seen some sort of spark in late summer, whether it was Grimace or Jose Iglesias with the OMG, which I used to bump on the treadmill when I used to do cardio, man. It was hot. There's absolutely no gimmicks or Grimace this season. So who is it right now? Which players are you calling upon right now to be that spark, to be that energy, so this team can go on a sustainable run, not just win a couple games and fall back into some sort of slump, but to actually hit some sort of double-digit win, some double-digit wins in a row, consecutive wins, and really sustain that leading into the playoffs and maybe even more.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, and I think it starts with the kids. What I mean by that is Mark Vientos, who had 27 home runs in his rookie year last year, was a phenom in playoffs. Defensively, he was a liability, but you didn't care because Buddy was hitting tanks every time out there. You get Brett Beatty, who's really looked great with the bat the past month and a half especially. Vientos has 4 home runs in his past 5 or 6 games. He's finally heating up, and this comes at a pivotal time for the Mets because right as they were getting their young, very vibrant catcher in Francisco Alvarez with 1,000 OPS, batting 300 for north of a month. He may still stay with this team, but if he does, he's going to be injury riddled, which means you're probably not going to get close to 100%. Might be 70 or 80%, but that gap alone could take him away from performing great versus just being around league average. It comes down to the kids needing to step up in the bottom half of this Mets order there because they've been so sporadic all season long. Yeah. Now that they're finally getting it from guys like Vientos and Beatty, that's been huge, but it doesn't stop there. What they need as a moment, if it's not going to be something silly like it's Sesame Street Day this Wednesday. Maybe they need Big Bird to be the guys he's thrown out on the mound. Who knows? Maybe he will be Grimace 2.0. But what they need on a serious note is to have a rally late in a ball game. The Mets are 0-53 this season when heading into the 9th inning, losing. I can't recall any team in MLB history that's done anything of significance when not having one single rally late in a ball game. This is what the Mets did last year. That is why they had that never say die mentality.
Absolutely.
They were resilient. They were bolting down first base just to get on there with 2 outs and grind it out to the next man up. They don't have that this season. And I think it's a Juan Soto home run in the 8th or 9th inning away from actually happening because he himself hasn't had that big moment the way that he has had in that 1 year with the Yankees, to a degree with the Padres, and most certainly there as a World Series champion with the Nationals.
All right, lastly, I'll put you on the spot. You're about to head out to Citi Field. They start this new series against the Phillies. Huge series.